In war, the forerunners are a dreadful thing, but it is in peace that they are truly frightening. There is, after all, little use in fearing the inevitable. In peace, though, nothing you think you know will possibly prepare you. They will show you wonders and horrors beyond your wildest imaginings. They will shower you with mind-bending enticements and terrifying possibilities until you wish to crawl into your nest and never emerge just to escape this mad, mad universe. And then they will sell you a commemorative mug. Like this one, a Trinidad Rancher-themed root beer float mug. U/outrageous undergarden 674. Tunvaru philosopher, 6928 current era. Free. Candy. Unknown Atrekna. Inheritors' War. How did this happen? You ask yourself. How did your mighty martial empire fall to the untrained, harmless farmers and tradespeople? How could your glittering, eternal empire be turned to dust so easily? It's that word, you see. Harmless. You, like so many before you, keep making the same mistake. You confuse harmless with peaceful. The harmless are weak, controllable. The peaceful, though, that is an entirely different matter. The peaceful know they contain deep within them demons that have neither compassion nor mercy, only vengeance. Demons they keep chained to protect those around them. Your imperial might, all your legions, are but dust in the wind when those chains come off. It takes just one pushed too far, one treated too badly, one who sees their dream threatened. Then it begins. One incident becomes two, then three, and before you realize it your power is trickling away. And like water held in your hand, the tighter you try to hold it, the faster it escapes your fist. Perhaps they will come for you, as you sit on your imperial throne. The noose, the firing squad, the headsman's axe. Those are merciful fates. No, if their vengeance demands the worst of ends for you, they will let you live, trapped in a gilded cage. And you will come to know what you truly are to them and their demons. Harmless. When empires fall, U/Bagusia, Telkin Free Press, 8239 current era. You can either have the rock or a piece of candy-coated freedom. Anonymous Terran. For God's sake take the candy. Excerpt from Bobco. Chatroom user Kononk 2279. Screw that. I'll give you a 3-month subscription to the Imperium DLC if you take the rock at least once. No, twice. Excerpt from Bobco. Chatroom user Bob's your uncle 666. Do it, do it, do it, cough, cough, whoa. That hit was harsh. Hey, where'd you get this stuff, Lanky? It smokes harder than Greeny Trig. Excerpt from Bobco. Chatroom user Smokes My Life 420. That there is just some homegrown stuff I've been experimenting with. Why do you think it was so cheap? Oh, look, the bigger mouse is at it again. Yes, yes, you go, girl. For the Emperor. Ha ha ha. This never gets old. Hey T-Chad, when is the new smoky cone ice cream flavor coming out? Excerpt from Bobco. Chatroom user Smokamoo 840. Take the rock. He. Excerpt from anonymous Bobco. Chatroom user username 2583829. As compiled by Kononk 4, Essays on Culture Cracking, Bobco Corporate Analysis. Commander Crect Pop. Looked over the holotank. The HFY Fat Freddy Fastbender, a super-heavy battlecruiser that had been lost during the Terran/Atrekna conflict, floated serenely in space. It bore mute evidence of that horrific conflict that had resulting in both the Atrekna and the Terrans being extinguished from the universe. He'd read history in Officers' Candidate School at the fabled Tvikik Academy, and had always marveled at how his ancestors and the critically wounded Confederacy had still managed to carry out the Inheritors' War and destroy what had been left of the Atrekna. True, records from that era were spotty at best, and most officer candidates preferred to study the Second Margit War or the Margit Resurgence, but Crect Pop, preferred the whirling nightmare of the Confederacy/Council conflict era for the sheer madness. Which meant he knew exactly what battle the TCSFV Fat Freddy Fastbender had been lost in. Frankly, as far as Cracked Pop had determined, the DRA Fulton had gotten lucky. It was the Fastbender they had found, and not one of the ships lost in the Terran Genocide event. The Fastbender had lost with all hands before all of the Terrans had dropped dead, as well as before the phasic shade explosion that had depopulated massive areas of the galactic spur. Just one of those coasting, dead, dark hulks was enough to depopulate an entire solar system if handled improperly. Cracked Pop shook his head and lit a cigarette, taking a slow drag off of it, then exhaling out of the spiracles above his footpads. Scans showed a single life form aboard. The Lord High Protulpit, leader of the scientific expedition, that was more a scavenging run than an actual scientific inquiry. Everyone had abandoned the vessel, and 3 vessels hidden in the Fastbender's drop bays, and gone to the smaller moon, filing in one after another into the Bobco LRP facility. The DRA Fulton leader had been alone on the vessel for nearly 2 weeks. Military intelligence and electronic warfare had managed to slice open all the DRA Fulton computer systems and had watched her alternate between lethargic despondency and manic ferocity. Cracked Pop opened a window and checked on the Lord High. She was sitting in the captain's chair on the bridge of the Fastbender, staring at the glittering gold rank in her hand. "Commander," one of the techs broke into Cracked Pop's thoughts. "Yes." Cracked Pop turned and looked at one of the analysts. "There's a Bobco vessel boarding the Fastbender. It dropped stealth once the dropship bay doors opened. Looks like a standard Bobco elf vessel," the lieutenant said. Cracked Pop opened another window to check. The vessel was settling down on the deck, and the door was closing to the shuttle bay/dropship bay. It was all crystal, wood, bronze, silver, and gold, with a healthy sprinkle of gem dust glittering on it. "Class?" Cracked Pop asked. "Looks like one of the Elven Fast courier ships, based on the designs from roughly the Mithril Nebula conflict," the lieutenant said. Cracked Pop nodded. "That tracks. There hasn't been too many updates to that kind of stuff since the Genocide event. Elves aren't really known for rapid advancement even when they're not solely born whole and court-controlled," the lieutenant said. "No. Races that live for several thousand years with a low birth rate aren't known for their fast tech tree jumps," Cracked Pop said slowly. He tapped the hologram. "Keep me informed. Track the Elven boarding team. Let me know what they do." "Aye, sir," the lieutenant said, sitting back down. Cracked Pop stared at the holotank. He had a feeling Protulpit's day was going to get worse. Staring at the holotank was doing nothing more than making her miserable. She was ignoring the fact she had enough food to last her several centuries now that she was the only one eating it, that she had enough water for everything forever, that she had enough air to last her forever even if she stopped the recirculation, that the gardens were growing just fine, tended to by the robots now that the males were gone. She was paying attention to the holotank showing her traitorous crew. It showed at least 24 different streams, all watching at least one of her traitorous expedition members, all of them enjoying primitive existence. The sight of a bunch of low-class males all dancing while small females, clapped and sang for them, even played instruments, made her brush her teeth in rage. Had not the Empress's foremothers cast down the old ways? Had not the way of the Mean's troops broken the chains that had bound every DRA Fulton? It infuriated her to see those low-class females laughing and smiling, sometimes even getting up to actually dance with the males rather than put them in their proper place as property of the state. Even more annoying was the numbers. Since the great upheaval, male birth rates had been adjusted to ensure there was plenty of hands to do the work that was beneath glorious female hands. It looked almost 1-to-1 on every stream, not the proper numbers. And the females weren't in positions of power, as was the Empress granted right based on their higher intellect, larger capacity for empathy and compassion, and ability to navigate the DRA, Fulton people through any complex issues. Why, there was even a female carrying big ceramic mugs of beer to hand out to females and males both. And she was expressing happiness at doing menial labor better suited to a robot or a male. She bruxed her back teeth again, feeling the hatred for the contents of the holotank surge up and make her stomach twist, ache, and burn. Her hateful contemplation was interrupted by the whoosh of the door to the bridge. She stood up, turning in place, her hand dropping to where she normally carried her pistol or shock prod. Both had been left somewhere she couldn't remember, and her fingers just grazed where normally she wore her gun belt. In the doorway stood terrors. Female terrors, wearing little more than diaphanous strips of cloth that left little to the imagination, surrounded by sparkles and glitter. They had short swords on their sashes, wrist comps, and comfortable slippers. "Valued customer Protulpit," one said, stepping forward. It had perfectly accented high speech. "I am," Protulpit said, raising her chin. "You are currently occupying Bobco property," the elf said. It made a motion to encompass the bridge. This vessel, the Fast Freddy Fastbender, was listed as lost with all hands during the Terran/Atrekan conflict. It is listed as valid salvage for any registered salvage agent. The emphasis on that one word made Protulpit's stomach clench. "The DRA Fulton claim this vessel," Protulpit said. "The DRA Fulton Empire is not a registered Terran salvage entity, nor has the DRA Fulton Empire submitted the proper salvage claim paperwork or even planted a salvage claim beacon, as is required by interstellar regulations and legal code," the elf said, moving into the bridge. More elves followed, along with some short, squat creatures that were wearing some kind of heavy metal armor. The squat ones, the same height as Protulpit, moved to chairs and began activating consoles. "Now, wait a minute," Protulpit said, sudden realizing what the elf was saying. "We transmitted our salvage claim, attached a beacon to this vessel, and registered it as salvage claimed on behalf of several valued customers," the elf said. She moved over to the ship mistress's throne, her mass making Protulpit step back and away instinctively. The elf sat down, crossing her legs primly. "We received verification of our salvage claim for the Fast Freddy Fastbender and all cargo found therein, including cargo of any non-Confederate entity, recognized or unrecognized," the elf said, "which includes the 3 DRA Fulton ships aboard this vessel." Protulpit just stared, rapidly bruxing her back teeth. "Seeing as you are not of the original crew of the Fastbender, nor do you have any salvage claim status or salvage guild membership, and your star nation is not recognized by the Confederacy of Bobco Incorporated, a negative liability company, as a salvage or trade entity at this time, Bobco claims all salvage rights to this vessel and its contents," the elf said. She leaned back. "A finder's fee was granted to those who informed us of this vessel and was translated to Bobco credits." She looked around. "As a gesture of Bobco's dedication to customer service, we will provide you with a one-way trip back to your star nation's capital," the elf stated. "Now just wait." Protulpit started to interrupt the elf, who kept speaking. "Or you will be determined to be a hostile biological xenospecies organism and will be tossed from the nearest airlock," the elf finished. Protulpit stood stock still, just blinking. "Your choice, valued customer," the elf stated. Ilvercrick shuffled forward with everyone else, his hands in his pockets, the rain rolling off of his thin raincoat. He was vaguely thankful for the aerogel lining that kept him somewhat warm, as the day was cold, the rain was cold, the wind was cold, everything was cold. He stepped up on the bus, just following the line in front of him. At least he was at the front. The last 2 buses he had filed through and out the back doors when there had not been enough seating for the workers waiting to go home. He sat down next to another squeakling wearing a lanyard with an ID card for Mechaninational Industries, sighing gratefully that he had found the seat while it was still warm from the previous occupant. He didn't say anything to his fellow passengers. It was better not to. You never knew if that squeakling had ended up on some watch list, and a person didn't want to end up next to a stranger on the list. He rode in silence for nearly an hour before getting off of the bus, waiting for the next, and feeling vaguely lucky when there were enough seats. The ride to his HAB complex wasn't too much longer, only another hour. Ilvercrick trudged from the mass transit stop to the HAB complex, swiped his ID card, then trundled down to the elevator, past the doors, and to the stairwell. He took a break 4 times at landings as he slowly made his way up to the 53rd floor. From there to apartment 5369. His apartment was small, but that was all right. He didn't have much anyway, and his 7 roommates didn't take up too much space. Neither their meager possessions or their bodies took up much space in the 3-room apartment. He wished he could afford one of those private cubicles near his work, but they cost more than he made in 2 months just for a single week. He nodded to 2 of his roommates that were getting dressed to go to work at a job. It was cheaper to hire people than install a robot, or where a living person was preferable to a 6 or robot vendor. His dinner was noodle paste, flavor powder, and vegetable paste. It was hot and filling, and that made it good. He was almost ready for bed when the Tri-V, installed in at least 2 walls in every room, came on and displayed the mandatory viewing logo. At least it was a mandatory viewing for only those who were awake. He sat and watched, not really caring. His stomach was full, he was warm, and the other squeaking he was resting against was soft and warm. It was just about some Lord High who had gone on a mission to a Terratomb world and finally succeeded in their struggle to return to the DRA Fulton Empire, heroically managing to survive when her entire crew had gone missing, possibly taken prisoner by some terrifying terror mechanism. He managed to stay awake even when the screen had informed him there would be another round of conscription drafts of workers. Even the sight of his ID number range didn't really snap him awake. Either he would be chosen, or he would not. He couldn't control it either way. He muttered out, "Hail to the Empress," when the Tri-V mandatory viewing ended after reminding everyone that it was the DRA Fulton Empire that was on the rise, that the time of the fallen Confederacy and all enemy nations was over. He didn't really care. He was almost asleep when his communicator pinged with a priority message personally addressed to him. Curious, he got up to use the bathroom, taking his communicator with him. The bathroom was the only privacy squeaklings like him ever had, unless they could afford something as luxurious as single-occupancy pods. He sat down, made himself comfortable to move his bowels, and opened up his personal email. "Welcome, prospective valued customer," burned on the screen in the darkness of the lavatory.